People have asked me about how I put my irrigation system together. That's where my water source is. And I run two 50-foot, 3/4 inch rubber commercial grade hoses across the ground, right down that boat stake, underneath the bushes, under the table, and I hook it into that zone valve. Now you have to have a zone valve because I got 16 rows I'm irrigating here. And with 16 rows you don't have enough water pressure to make them work. This stuff can do, the water pressure we have and our well runs 40 to 60 pounds. We can do 3 rows really easy. 4 rows is a push because we're doing 33-foot long rows. Now out of that zone valve, and you notice over here I've put a double because I needed an extra one. This one has got 4 openings on it. That's got 2 on it. That's got 2 on it. And that I just split with the thing that came with the kit. And then you take the supply lines, which are 3/4 of an inch, and then you have to put one of these fittings on it. Now it has a cap on it right now to keep dirt and spiders and bugs from getting in these hoses and blocking up your little drippers. And then you have these lined up with each one of your rows. And so on this side I have 4 lines to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 11 rows. It's just not perfectly in place yet. So at each row, and I just space these about 3 feet apart, and I do my rows about 3 feet apart so you can see where one's there, it's hitting pretty close to the middle. And then this one here is another line that will do that row, and that row, and that row. And then that line there will pick up with those to do that one, and that one, and that one. And then out of the end I can run one down that row. Since we are planting tomatoes this weekend, it's best to run this hose, which is 33 feet long, and it has a male end on one end and a female end on the other. And when you store them, you put it both together. And by doing it together, nothing can get in the line. And see, that's where the water comes out, but inside there is just a tiny little hole, a little bit bigger than a sewing needle. So if you let spiders or bugs get in here, it would block them. So I get all the water out of them, and then I put them together. Now I will undo these and run it to the end. I will hook this, I will take that cap off and hook the end here that goes on the threaded end, run this to the other end, and then once I get them all hooked up that I want to use, I will open up the valve and flush out the lines for these 3 rows. And then once they're flushed out, I'll put a cap on the other end, on the end with the threads on this end. You see it's hooked to threads there, so a cap has to hook. This cap will actually go on this end, and then that part right there will be at the end, and it's threads, and you put a cap on it once you flush them out. And then all you have to do is, when you want to water, is come over here and take that hose and turn the valve onto this one, and it'll drip for those 3 rows. And after 20 or 30 minutes you cut that one off, and what I do is I just turn that one on 20 minutes, 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 that one, and my garden's done. While I'm doing that, I can be cutting grass. I can be packing to go home. But when you get all this stuff planted and it's been dry for a while and it's getting late on Sunday night and you're going back home, and your wife, my bride, she goes to work on Monday morning, I'm retired, I can water this while we're packing up. And all I have to do is cut the main valve off to here, which is not added here yet, or cut the hose off that supplies it out by the street. Now this is actually the drip line. You can see it stained inside from the minerals in the water. This is just the drippers. They give you a little special tool. It's like a pair of pliers, and under here is a metal circle, and on the top is a point to put that thing on, and you just press it on the hose and it just pops in. you can pull them out by just putting it in there and pulling it out with that tool, and you can pop another one in case that gets clogged. And you'll have one at every one of these outlets, 16 of them, and you'll flush them all out 3 at a time, and then you put caps on the end, and then you regulate it with that valve. And some of these little turn-off valves are turned on the side right there. Now that's where my water source is, and I've run a 100-foot hose over here. And now I can irrigate my garden. But suppose I want to water my grapevines. Now I could run a line over there and have another valve and another hose, but I'd have to have another valve there. And you see where I've got 2 close together there, or the one on the end. I can take a piece of this hose and use it like a garden hose. I've got a big roll of it right there. That's the supply line, it's bigger. That's the drip lines. I think I bought 700 feet because we're going to do all the beds across the street. So we can just turn a knob and not spray it with a hose. But you can put a hose on the end of that hose, or you can just run a supply line like a garden hose. It's cheaper than a garden hose, out to that end, and put a valve down here to control it. So you've got your water on here from 100 feet away, and I go up there and can take a hose off the end and water all those irises and peonies. Down here, if I want to water the grapevine, I can go over there to the 3rd pole, 4th pole you see there, and hang the hose, bring the hose around that compost pile and hook it on the end of that one, or run another line from there over here, and so I can run a garden hose through my irrigation line. You need some kind of valve assembly, depends on what you're working. I'm doing 1,500 square foot garden with this. If you're doing raised beds or 2 or 3 in a row, you could put a valve at each bed and cut the beds off and leave one on, cut the one bed off, turn the second bed on. You know, you have many options. You just have to draw it out and plan for it. Submatic is the company I use. Here's an inline valve for a drip line. It just goes up and you just push it in the hose. And this is a big valve for the supply line. So you can put that in there and turn it on and off whenever you want it. To hook all this stuff together, here's your supply line. You would just, all you have to do is push that on the end of that. Just push it in there about 1 inch or so, and it will grip it and it will not leak. And then you put another piece there and go to your next row if you're doing rows. And see, that one has this kind of end. They also make them, which I don't have one out here with, but they make a T with this. Hold on a second.